أعوذ بال
Welcome back to AFMI's 30th annual convention. The third and last session now begins with Mr. Saeed Patel, AFMI's president elect, in the moderator's chair.
Assalamu alaikum. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most beneficent. I begin the session 3 of AFMI's 30th annual convention. I, Saeed Patel, the president-elect of AFMI, New York, begin this session, third session of AFMI's 30th convention, which is virtual this year. Today's session is youth empowerment with special emphasis to women and girls' education. And one of the panelists, we have an exciting program. There are about 5 panelists who's going to enjoy their talk, and inshallah you stay for the question and answer session as well. I welcome all the viewers from around the world, from USA, from India, UK, and all over the world. The first panelist is an exciting 23-year-old Aisha Rena. She's a student of history at Jamia Millia Islamia University, New Delhi. She has become arguably the most prominent student face the pan-Indian protest against the discriminatory citizenship amendment and policies. As a beneficiary of education from a premier central university, she worked tirelessly with an NGO named Yes India, of which she is the current vice president. The organization is involved in the upliftment of students in coastal North Kerala. It played a huge role in offering orientation for students to get into various central universities. She's joining us live from New Delhi. Please welcome Ms. Aisha Rena.
Assalamu alaikum. I would like to congratulate American Federation of Muslims of Indian origin for organizing a visual conference under the theme Safety Through Strength and Solidarity. Thank you for inviting me to speak here entitled Youth Empowerment with special emphasis on women. I would like to extend my pleasure to be a part of that group. When I first read the topic, the very first thing that came to my mind is, should the youth need to be empowered? Are they already empowering? Being someone born and brought up in Kerala and studying in Jamia Millia Islamia University, Delhi, I always felt this thing that people are trying so hard to empower women, empower youth, empower Dalit, empower the marginalized community and everyone. throughout the anti-CAA movement, everyone were appreciating Muslim women for coming into the streets, and I remember that even people were congratulating me for breaking stereotypings of Muslim women. The thing that I always felt is that none of them want to be empowered actually. Rather, what they want is the space and opportunity to hear them and understand them without any stereotypes or preoccupied conclusions regarding them. Every time the need to be empowered youth has always risen up to the task when they are needed. When the government of India passed the law discriminating and excluding a particular community based on their religion from the constitution in December 2019, the first wave of protest emerged in the university space. It was the youth who took over the issue and started protesting in the street. Even in the recent Hathras rape case also, students were coming into the streets and were protesting against it. They know that it's COVID-19 pandemic situation, like gathering and protesting would harm their health, it may risk their life. They know everything. But without thinking about that, without having a second thought, they are protesting against all the atrocities. It was the youth who we always tag with the faces like you youngsters have always with the mobile phone. Nowadays, youngsters do not have any social commitments, etc., etc. They are coming out. They're actually standing with the needy people. They always act accordingly. In India, everyone who has raised their voice against the biased government, they are getting arrested and charged with the draconian laws right now. In spite of all that, they are speaking up and expressing their voices. That is something which I have always seen uniquely among you. Their energy.
It looks like we have some technical difficulty and we have lost the connection.
Sorry, I lost the connection. I joined. Like I'll carry on.
Okay, go on.
So,
You are on.
in India, Muslim groups are based on this identity, um,
We cannot hear you, Ms. Reina. Are you still speaking? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello? Am I audible right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry for the inconvenience of the connection issues. So I was talking about the Northeast Delhi violence. So when the Northeast Delhi riot happened, they were attacking people based on their name and clothes, their culture, everything. In all these situations, youth came forward and took an unapologetic stand of their identity. Being a Muslim woman, I know that it's risk for me to walk through certain areas of Delhi wearing my hijab and expressing my identity. But I choose to that unapologetically because and I express that I am a Muslim woman and I will be a Muslim woman until I die in spite of all the threats I'm getting. So this is how today's youngsters are. Whether it to be a woman, men, or in spite the gender, they are coming up for. Politics, bureaucracy, culture, and everywhere we can see them. The point is that youth need not to be empowered. what they really wanted is step aside for them, give space for them, and support their ideas. So that's all.
Yeah, Jazakallah for that. Actually, the empowerment actually means youth should take charge of their life. That's address the situation, take action by improving their resources and transform their consciousness through their beliefs, value, uh, and attitudes. Youth empowers actually improves the quality of life. So that's the whole idea. But it seems like the voice wasn't very clean. Are you still going to talk, or we can move on to the next presenter?
Yeah, I'll just conclude what I have been speaking about. The youth nowadays, what they required is the space for them to speak up, then the people to encourage their ideas and give them a space to express themselves and express their ideas. So that is what I have been trying to convey in throughout. I'm sorry that there are certain connection issues happened in between. Still, I'm looking forward to the question and answer session. Thank you. Thank you once more for including me in the panelists.
You are very welcome, and thank you for attending this talk. Now, our next speaker is Dr. Mariam Ahmed and Dr. Fatima Ahmed. I would like to start with a quote which embodies what they are doing. It says something, it goes something like this: start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Dr. Mariam Ahmed is a graduate from Illinois University of Illinois. She's practicing dentistry in Northern Virginia. She's a member of American Dental Association, longtime active member and supporter of AFMI. Along with her sister, Dr. Fatima Ahmed, who is a graduate of Case Western Reserve University of Dentistry. She has a master's degree from University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, clinical assistant professor, School of Dentistry at University of Michigan. She's the president of Michigan Association of Orthodontics, member of board of Greater Lake Orthodontic Association, longtime member and supporter of AFMI, and they are both proud daughters of Mr. and Mrs. Iqbal Ahmed, who have been associated with AFMI for a very long time. So please welcome them, and let's listen to what they have to say about the youth empowerment and how they have been involved in that. Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Patel, for the kind introduction. It is a great honor to join such esteemed speakers at the annual AFMI convention this year. Thank you especially to Dr. Nakidar, Chairwoman Dr. Farida Ijaz, and all the respected guests and volunteers for giving us this opportunity. We are two sisters here. My name is Mariam Ahmed. I live in Leesburg, Virginia with my husband Maheen and my kids. I am pictured here on the lower left side of the screen. I am a dentist practicing since 2012, and I have had the pleasure of being involved in AFMI on various levels throughout my life, and their mission has been very close to the heart of our family since AFMI's inception. Our parents always made sure, no matter how packed our schedules were or what exam we were facing the next day, that we always made time to be involved with AFMI. My sister Fatima here also had the honor of being an AFMI gold medal recipient and was recognized in Punjab, India some years ago. I will let her introduce herself now.
Thank you, Mariam, and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Fatima Ahmed, and I want to first reiterate the acknowledgement for the convention chairwoman, Dr. Farida Ijaz. We lovingly know as Farida Auntie. It's very fitting for us to be speaking on women's empowerment at this convention being led by a strong Muslim woman. Thank you, Farida Auntie, for all your hard work bringing this convention to fruition. And thank you for everybody else involved at AFMI at all the various levels. I am always impressed with the dedication and hard work that everyone does on a volunteer basis. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, with my family pictured on the lower right-hand side of your screen. I currently reside in beautiful Ann Arbor, Michigan with my husband, Siskeen, and my children, Rania, Noor, and Hassan, pictured on the upper right-hand side. My sister and I have always been very close and we do everything together, so this talk will be no different. Hopefully you can tell our voices apart, although our moms still cannot. But if not, it's okay. It's the message is what is important. My first thought when asked to speak on Muslim women's empowerment was that this is not a new concept in Islam. Women's empowerment and uplifting may seem like a modern feministic approach to living in the 21st century, but we as Muslims must have a different viewpoint. Women's empowerment has been around since the advent of our great religion. Women have been active participants in Islam since its beginning. I encourage everyone to read more about the thousands of women instrumental in Islamic history. However, we all know from basic Islamic history that the Prophet's first wife was a successful entrepreneur who financially supported him during his prophethood. Women were active leaders in wars and held government leadership positions. Islam's advent resulted in more rights for females and attempted to abolish oppressive practices such as female infanticide, child marriage, the dowry system, etc. The Prophet also taught us through the Holy Quran that a female child was a blessing from God equal to a male child. It was relayed that there is no discrimination between people based on gender or race, but only in their actions. Islam also gave women's rights in marriage, divorce, in owning assets, and decision-making, and even on the battlefield, areas that were not open to women and girls in most of the world, especially in that time. Paradise was also said to be placed under the feet of a mother. In other words, a man gained entry into paradise in the afterlife by honoring a woman. Here is the first university in the world that is still running to this day. It is over 1,000 years old, and it was founded by a Muslim woman, Fatma al-Fihri, in Fez, Morocco. So you can see Islam is steeped in women's empowerment. Modern-day feminism can sometimes be interpreted to create some false choices. These choices do not and should not exist in Islamic feminism. Most of these women here are immediately recognizable as practicing Muslim women and leaders. In Islam, these two things are not mutually exclusive. You are not choosing between being a woman and being a professional. You are not choosing between being a professional and being a wife and mother. You are not choosing between being feminine and being a professional. One of the things that I did not know previously that I learned during my research for this talk was about Anusha Ansari from Iran, who was the first Muslim woman astronaut. And last but not least, the most influential in our lives, my mom, Dr. Razia Ahmed, who gave us the perfect example of balancing both a successful career as a psychiatrist and being the best mom in the world. And I'm sure my dad would say the best wife in the world also. She embodies Islamic feminism and values in her day-to-day life and is a perfect role model. We love you, Mom.
So what is the importance of women in today's world? Recently, there was a study published some years ago by the journal Psychology Spot about children inheriting their intelligence on the X chromosome that was passed down from their mother. And so we know that intellect is partly nature and also partly nurture because women tend to be the primary caregivers and role models for their children from birth. We know also that education and empowerment of women will lift not only the woman herself, but her entire family and the community that she stays in and society as a whole. Mothers serve as our biggest role models for children from birth up until adulthood. And we know that children of educated mothers are much more likely to emulate and copy or even try to exceed what their mothers. In today's world, everywhere though, women are facing inequalities, especially in the countries that have a large gender inequality gap. Even as of this past month, The passing of the Honorable Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg in the most advanced and powerful nation on earth has now shaken the faith that people have in the women's rights advances that passed even recently. The situation is even worse in modern-day India, which we will elaborate on later in the talk. So what are the obstacles to empowerment of women? They are barriers in socioeconomic and political areas, violence against women in society and in the home, unequal education and lack of access to education, access to schools, and the societal outlook and cultural pressures and expectations that a woman faces. Also, the lack of community resources that a woman may access in order to gain skills. What is empowerment then? According to an article in the Jerusalem Post by former Israeli ambassador to UN, Daniel Carmen, empowerment means moving from enforced powerlessness to a position of power. Education is a means of empowering women with knowledge, skills, and self-confidence that's necessary to fully participate in the development process. He also states that sustainable development is only possible when women and men enjoy equal opportunities to reach their potential. According to this author, who is now the head of Israel's Agency for International Development Cooperation called Mashav, education is the most important tool to reduce poverty, and investing in women's education and contributing and shaping policy at a higher level is of the utmost importance. So, and lastly, he told us that education is the one and only entry point to opportunity that anyone and everyone must have access to. So why must we focus on women and girls' empowerment? Because education is at the core of a woman's ability to contribute to all the activities that enhance knowledge, competency, and skills, including development and contributions to civil society. And like we said before, it is the entry point to opportunity. And a woman's education will have a ripple effect within her family and across her generations.
So what is education? According to the Oxford Dictionary, education is an enlightening process. We enlighten those who are in the dark, who need guidance. If we look at it as a process that enlightens the individual as a whole from within, we are looking at how it benefits a person, a society that person is from, their community, country, and so the world. When women are educated, not just formally, but by community campaigns and societal outlook, women are taught how to productively manage kids' health, their family in a positive manner, as well as to be able to run businesses and exist in leadership positions. When one's mind is enlightened and broadened, one has a confidence to take on the roles of life adequately. After all, another definition of education is acquiring the things one needs in order to develop in an orderly, sequential way into members of society. Thus, education of women serves its purpose by uplifting society as a whole and is an investment in the future of the society in which she lives.
So let's ask the question, why educate women? According to the UN, the global workforce participation for women is less than 50%, while for a man it is 75%. And women make up about half of the 1.7 billion adults globally who do not even have a bank account. Every additional year of attendance in a school increases girls' eventual wages by 10 to 20%. Women also make up more than 2/3 of the world's illiterate population. Then we talk about the rural girls. They are more likely than urban girls to be out of school. Only 39% of the rural girls are attending secondary school in the world, which is far fewer than the rural boys. While progress has been made in reducing the gender gap in urban school environments, data from 42 countries still shows that rural girls are twice as likely as urban girls to be out of school. When we build local schools in rural communities, we increase the girls' enrollment. A study showed in Pakistan that only a half-kilometer increase in the distance to school would decrease the girls' enrollment by 20%. So building schools again increases their enrollment. And then we know that the rural women's deficits in education will have long-term implications for their family and their well-being, as well as overall poverty reduction.
So continuing with why educate women, we know that when women are educated, they will be more likely to have an age-appropriate marriage. They will be much more likely to be involved in family planning, and they are overall less vulnerable to violence. This is due to the increased financial security, maturity, and confidence that comes along with when a woman is educated. Vast improvements have been seen in the mortality rates of children less than 5 years old since 1990. The rural rates are usually much higher than urban ones. Data from 68 countries indicates that a woman's education is a key factor in determining a child's survival. Children of mothers with no education are more likely to die than those with mothers who have some secondary or tertiary education, and still more likely to die than those whose mothers have a primary.
So where do Muslims in India stand in all this? 65% of women in India are literate, and 50% of Muslim women are literate. As a whole, 42% of Muslim Indians are illiterate, but of the Muslim females in India, 48% are illiterate. Even when we consider the state of Kerala, that is known to have the highest literacy rate in India, among women in general, the rate is at 95%. But when we're looking at Muslim women, the number goes down to 70%. This is the highest illiteracy rate of any religious group in the entire country, and it belongs to Muslim women. School enrollment also for Muslim girls is lower than boys, and the school dropout rate for Muslims as a whole is at 17%, while for Indians in general, it is at 13%. So we can see that in all metrics that can be used to measure educational progress, Muslim women as a group are very much being left behind. What problems are the Muslim Indian females facing? There is an increase in all of the socioeconomic problems we talked about before among Indian Muslims, including domestic violence, child marriage, unemployment, dowry demands, lack of education, and lack of income. How has AFMI helped? Since its inception in 1989, AFMI has opened schools, especially focusing in rural and underserved areas. They provide scholarships and financial assistance to youth, and they build from a primary level, and then they progress to high school and beyond. AFMI provides the youth with incentives in academics, such as gold medals and recognition for higher achievement. Over here, we have a picture of the 28th convention, annual convention that was held in Odisha, India in 2019. It was the Education and Gala Award ceremony, and as you can see on the left, most of the gold medal recipients were girls. AFMI also works with lawmakers and policymakers to expand on inclusiveness of Muslim and female youth at higher levels. We try to get media coverage and invite renowned speakers to increase the attention to our mission. Over here, we see AFMI delegates meeting with former presidents of India on the left, President Patil, and the AFMI delegates on the right side, meeting with former President Abdul Kalam. So you can see AFMI works from a grassroots level, from building physical schools, as well as the legislative level, working at India's highest level of government in order to bring about our mission. Incorporating digital age resources is very important in schools today, and AFMI is on board, enabling the youth to develop the skills that are necessary in today's time so that they may assimilate into modern age society with the skills that are necessary to have.
So that's what Mariam's done a nice job on showing us what AFMI has done, and which that brings us to the point of what you can do to help AFMI's mission. The first thing I would highly recommend is to please get involved with your regional chapter. Every state has a chapter. You can get involved at a local level. There are also international trips, which you would be most welcome on. During these international trips, there are galas and medal distribution. There are also visits to the various schools that have been established and projects that are ongoing. It's an amazing experience. If you want to join your local youth chapter, the specific person to contact is Darakshan Khan. You can see her email there. However, any AFMI delegate would be able to guide you in the right direction. A financial donation is also, of course, appreciated. However, that's not the primary focus of the youth involvement. Unless you are somehow independently very wealthy, we know the youth are in a stage where they're building their lives. And so your volunteer and your time is what we're asking for. We all know that education today is not limited to just test scores and grades. Higher education institutions expect you to be active leaders in your community. Instead of starting a project from scratch and attempting to reinvent the wheel, joining projects under the umbrella of AFMI, which include but are not limited to women's empowerment projects, will allow you to have such an experience. For example, recently, established a clean drinking water well in Rajasthan in a village in which children had to walk several miles every morning to gather drinking water was completed recently. AFMI, led by my father, Dr. Iqbal Ahmed, was able to petition Microsoft to fund this project. The children in this village can now, instead of waking up and going to gather water, can now wake up and go to school. You can imagine how participating in such a project is a huge learning experience, from learning how to lobby American corporations to help, to coordinating all of these international efforts. Would leave you with a huge learning experience and will reflect well on any college application or resume. Joining AFMI will allow you to grow in both Deen and Dunya. On the left, you can see a picture of the well and some footage.
Yeah, अभी just start हो गई है अभी. Yeah.
Being dug. And then several days later, to see it producing water was like a miracle for the people living in these villages, and really life-changing. Once they have their basic needs met, then their children can look forward to the next level of collecting water.
Yeah, अभी just start हो गई है अभी. Yeah.
Becoming a youth member of AFMI. There are several advantages to becoming a youth member of AFMI. You get an opportunity to make an impact on the world. You get to experience your cultural background. There are volunteer opportunities both locally and abroad. You're experiencing growth as a global citizen, and you're being able to connect with older people who have more experience in worldly ways and how to go about doing these types of projects, which will serve as mentors for you. You're starting on your trek to becoming a social justice advocate. You don't have to be done with school. You don't have to be fully established. In fact, doing it when you're a young college kid or a high school kid is probably when you are most free from your other responsibilities and will get the most benefit from it. Understands that young people are at a point in their lives where there's constant evolution, and if one year you are heavily involved, but the following year your workload at school doesn't allow for it and you're minimally involved, and then you come back to attend an international trip, there is no minimum hours required and no maximum hours that there's a limit to. Everyone understands that you're at a point in your life where things are not always the same from year to year, so any level of involvement is
So in summary, we would like to say that much work is left to be done in terms of women's access to education, especially in developing countries and Muslim countries. Though work is being done, it is not enough. There is countless data that shows us that women and girls' education benefits society as a whole, and now it is on us to continue and try to accelerate the rate at which access to education is given, so that we may improve the lives of those that are living in our time and their children of tomorrow. A final but very important point we would like to make also is that this is not just a women's issue alone. It is the husband's job to champion their wives, and it is the father's job to champion their daughters. And for those of us raising sons, like my sister and I, this is a picture of our sons Isa and Hassan. They are 3 years old now. It is our Islamic responsibility to raise them to have a deep respect for women and make gender equality their mission, as our father did when he was raising us, and as our prophet did 1400 years ago. Thank you for your time, and we do look forward to seeing your involvement in the future. Again, here is the contact information for Darakshan Khan, who is in charge of the youth chapter, and we welcome any questions.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Doctors Mariam and Dr. Fatima. You are the epitome of what AFMI is about. You represent AFMI, you represent Indian Muslim, you represent people living in US very well. Like I said, this proverb fits you very well, which says, start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And you have been doing this, and we are very proud of you. And like, as you said in your talk, that Deen and Dunya, that's what it is all about. A lot of times people forget about Deen when they try to get too involved in Dunya. But Islam provides that balance, and that's the appeal of Islam, where you're supposed to be living in a certain way, helping people. And by some account, Muslims donate $500 billion as a zakat worldwide, which is a lot of money. And even in pandemic right now in India, I hear stories of Muslims helping more than their share. So Jazakallah again. And now next up, moving along with the program, we have next speaker, Ms. Nadia Ahmed. Nadia Ahmed is an associate law professor at Berry University School of Law and the coordinator of Environmental and Earth Law Certificate Program. Professor Ahmed's over 40 scholarly publications focus on the interactions of energy sightings, the environment, and sustainable development, and draw on international investment law and corporate social responsibility. In 2016, she was recognized by the Orlando Business Journal as a 40 under 40 honorees for her leadership and community involvement. She has presented her research on the law and policy of advanced biofuels in Abu Dhabi, Cairo, Cambridge, Doha, Denver, New York, and San Francisco. Professor Ahmed earned an undergraduate degree in comparative literature with language emphasis in Latin and English from the University of California at Berkeley with high honors. She completed her law degree from the University of Florida Levine College of Law, where she was a Virgil Hawkins Fellowship recipient. Later, she earned a Master's of Law in Environmental and Natural Resources Law from the University of Denver Stern College of Law. She's fluent in Urdu, Hindi, Punjabi, proficient in Arabic, has a reading knowledge of Latin, and has studied Spanish, Old Norse, Anglo-Saxon, and Middle East English. And when I think about her and when I read her thing, this quote goes well with what she's doing. It goes like, empowerment comes from within, being who we are and doing what we love and sharing it with the world. I present to you Nadia Ahmed.
السلام عليكم. الحمد لله على نعمة الإسلام وكفى بالله كثيرا. I want to thank Dr. Nakadar for this invitation. It has really forced me to reconsider how I fit into this identity as a Muslim of Indian origin. I wanted to also speak about what it means to be of Indian origin, what it means to my family, to my children, and to my partner. When we understand where we come from, we know where we have to go. My grandmother would tell us tales of how successful her family used to be and how her arms were filled with bracelets and churian, and how she would lose them and break them, and how her father would constantly buy her new ones, and her mother would become upset with her. And my maternal grandmother spoke of how they lost everything. And I would think to myself that I hated jewelry because I didn't want it to be something that I could feel a sense of loss if I lost it. My great-grandfather on my mother's side, my grandmother's father, was a trader from Burma who migrated to Madras, which is modern-day Chennai, and he became quite successful in the textile industry. He also supported the Ottomans against the British through financial means. When the Ottomans were about to be defeated, his neighbors and friends told them that he should transfer his goods and hide them, because he would be raided soon for supporting the Ottomans. And being the person of principle that he was, he didn't want to hide anything. He said he would deal with it. And sure enough, he was raided by the British Raj for supporting the Ottomans and lost everything overnight. He was never the same again from what I've been told. Eventually, my grandmother's family moved to Hyderabad, India. My grandmother married her first cousin because for many centuries in India, my mother's family wouldn't marry outside of their extended family, which was somewhat common anthropological phenomenon, which I later learned in college. In Hyderabad, as Muslims, the post-World War, my family, like other Muslims under the rule of the Nizam, formed a pseudo-upper class caste in Indian society because many educational institutions in Hyderabad were operated by Muslims, including Osmania University, where my mother studied. Muslims were able to thrive in Hyderabad because of broader educational opportunities that were afforded to them. My mother's great uncle also studied at Osmania University. Dr. Muhammad Hamidullah, he completed 2 doctorate degrees. He was also forced into exile once he spoke out about the Indian government for its atrocities against the people of Hyderabad prior to its fall. In fact, as he was addressing what would become the United Nations in New York, he received a note saying that the Hyderabad had fallen as he led a delegation to the United Nations. And he ended up serving as a foreign advisor to the French Premier Charles de Gaulle. And afterwards, he would eventually have a stroke before he would be moved over to the United States, where one of my mom's cousins would take care of him. And during that time, he also had a nurse that also helped out with his care because he required full-time care. And one of the nurses had asked me as I was visiting them when they were in Jacksonville, what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said I wanted to be like him. And then she laughed and she told me, make sure you get married. And so one day while we were at the dinner table, my daughter, who was 4 at the time, this is several years later, remarked that she wanted to be a princess. And my son says, only the British have royalty. My husband and I both looked at each other and I said, if the British hadn't come to India, we would all be living in palaces, still like royalty. The British have no monopoly on royalty. And it wasn't an exaggeration because my husband comes from a family from Sringampattam in South India. And after we had gotten engaged, I was going through the museum in Mysore and I saw a portrait of his progenitor and was amazed by the resemblance to my own fiance at the time. And I felt, as someone growing up who was obsessed with history and obsessed with books, that I could literally marry a page of history. And 270 years ago, Fateh Ali Tipu was born as the son of Hyder Ali and Fatima Fakhr Nisan Devan Ali, and later known as Sultan Fateh Ali Sahib Tipu, or Tipu Sultan, more commonly, was a thorn in the side of the British East India Company, sparking conflict with his attack on the British allied Travancore in 1789. In the Third Anglo-Mysore War, he was forced into the Treaty of Sringampattam, losing a number of previously conquered territories, including Malabar and Mangalore. And he sent emissaries to foreign states, including the Ottoman Empire, Afghanistan, and France, in an attempt to rally opposition to the British. In the Fourth Anglo-Mysore War, the imperial forces of the British East India Company were supported by the Marathas, and they decapitated Tipu Sultan on May 4th, 1799, while he was defending the fort of Sringampattam. And they then took two of his sons dressed as clowns to the British as spoils of war to parade them before the British crown. And so in the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire in 1923, in the fall of Hyderabad, and in the martyrdom of Tipu Sultan in 1799, there were Muslims and those who projected themselves as Muslims who worked exceptionally and secretively against the interests of Muslims. Had it not been for those who secretly conspire against the interests of their own community, we would be able to advance our own interests as a community. We would advocate for peace and not for war, for love and inclusion instead of hatred and malice. And just because people position themselves for some power and some wealth, we as a community should not suffer. On September 3rd, 2020, I published an op-ed in the Mondo Weiss, a Jewish and American publication, calling out the fumbling, incompetence, and inaptitude of Muslims for Biden's senior advisor, Farouk Mitha. Shortly thereafter, the Electronic Intifada published a series of articles exposing the Zionist connections of the group that Farouk Mitha had co-founded, Engage Florida. Engage has worked in lockstep with AIPAC and BJP and RSS to delegitimize the work of activists. And until and unless we completely delegitimize Engage, we cannot effectively work for our own advocacy. We have to work to take ownership of our democracy. My family, over the centuries, has faced financial ruin and confronted complete exile, imprisonment, and even death for speaking out and fighting those forces of British Empire known as the British Raj. In the same way the sun never set on the British Empire, the sun never sets on a US military base. And to be a Muslim of Indian origin means to be stripped of your dignity time in and time out. And it's painful to me to be an Indian that I don't even identify as Indian. I say 4 of my grandparents had Pakistani passports and that I am no longer Indian. If a place will deny me basic rights and freedoms, then it means nothing to me. It is only a place of tyranny, subordination, and abject humiliation at the hands of the British and at the hands of the British's replacements, the Indian nationalists. And so the blood coursing in me from India is a story of resistance and of defying the rhetoric. I've been working since April 2019 on the Bernie Sanders campaign in voter mobilization and voter protection efforts since 2004. And I served this year as a national delegate to the Democratic National Committee. And with Iranian-American Hania Jodat Barnes in Irvine, California, we co-founded Muslims, Delegates, and Allies Coalition, a 501c4 advocacy organization to promote and speak up for the rights of Muslims, as well as for progressive causes. We want to turn a new page in American Muslim advocacy. And I also served as a Muslims for Biden digital group member until I was repeatedly removed from the WhatsApp group. And then Hania and I took over the website for Muslims for Biden and launched the 50-state voter mobilization effort. And I called it the Khabza of the Khabza group because our work as Muslim activists cannot be thwarted. It is the details of the voter mobilization that I want you to take part in, to take ownership of our democracy. And more so, I want to make sure that you set aside whatever you're doing and make sure to vote in this historic election, that people died for their right to vote, and here in our countries and abroad. We have to start levitating the Muslim vote. I remember last fall being in a classroom with students discussing Selma's Bloody Sunday from Alabama, and those innocent Those were the innocent days before the pandemic, but at that time, it still felt very dreadful to me. Even after the cannons and the fires of the Confederacy fell silent, the racism remained in places in the Jim Crow South. The Selma to Montgomery March was part of the series of coordinated civil rights protests that occurred in Alabama. And that year was 1965. Earlier that year, in order to register Black voters in the South, protesters marched a 54-mile route from Selma to the state capital of Montgomery. Those brave protesters were confronted with deadly violence from local law enforcement and white vigilante groups. And after much negotiation, the National Guard protected the protesters as they completed the marchers for their intended destination. Those protesters, including Martin Luther King Jr. and John Lewis, defined their generation. They were emblematic of an era. They rose against the tide of the bigotry to shape the laws and uphold the principles of the Constitution. I am of the opinion that our Constitution is a living, breathing document that is a space for all of us. Meanwhile, as Muslims, we are having our own civil rights moment under Donald Trump, the reckoning we are having of how far we will go for our constitutional rights and the ideals enshrined in the Declaration of Independence. I figured if people could go vote, being beaten by batons and pelted with tear gas and sprayed with bullets, we could figure out a way to vote in the pandemic. I had caught a lot of flack for my political positions, whether about prison abolition or the Green New Deal, but it's my faith and trust in Allah more than the concerns of individuals and tainted organizations that carries me through the day. The rights in our Constitution to speak out and to have free press are critical, and we cannot be silent. And if we are silent, our problems will not be magically solved. As a law professor, I am troubled by how Donald Trump is ruining our democracy and the rule of law. As a mother of 3 young children, I can't stand to hear the cries of children ripped apart from their parents at the border. And as the wife of an immigrant, I can't bear the pain of families ripped apart by the Muslim ban. We cannot sit out this election. We have to take action to restore dignity, integrity, and honor back to our nation's capital. No other country than America would I have the freedom and the capacity to even exist, to study, to teach, and drive change in my community. My father, an immigrant from Pakistan, was born a colonial subject of the British Raj and came here and worked the night shift as a security guard in the Pan Am hangar at John F. Kennedy International Airport, and worked his way through graduate school and moved to Orlando the year SeaWorld opened. And through his hard work and sacrifices, he now designs highways and airports all across the country as an engineer. He built America. My mother came to this continent alone with a medical degree from Osmania University in India and worked counting coupons in Montreal, Canada, because she couldn't get any other job because she didn't speak French. And she ended up in America for more opportunities. She now stands at the front lines of the pandemic, treating patients as a pediatrician. My parents met and married in Orlando. They came from 2 nations, always on the brink of war. But here in America, they built family, love, and community. And in this election, we have to mobilize our communities like we have never done so before. We have to educate ourselves. We have to take part in this democracy. A few weeks ago, my husband took out a book I had co-edited in 2002 called Unveiling the Real Terrorist Mind, and he gave it to my son to read. Sanan is now 9, and he said, "Your mother wrote this book a long time ago for you to read now." When I was Sanan's age, I made my dad take me to see the Nasir Bagh refugee camp in Peshawar, Pakistan. When I was 13, my parents with other members of my community organized the bus so that we could march on Washington against the embargo on Bosnia. The bus was literally parked in front of our house, and with our friends in the community, we boarded the bus to participate in the largest Muslim rally in the US at the time. Estimates ranged from 50,000 to 100,000. This also became what was probably the first Muslim event to receive national news media coverage. When I was 20 years old, I organized a protest with anti-war activists at my college commencement at the University of California at Berkeley. We made the national news for our protest against the commencement speaker by then Secretary of State Madeleine Albright, who callously said that the price was worth it when the deaths of 500,000 children occurred as a result of economic sanctions. The Muslims, the Colombians, the Serbians were all in on that protest. And when I was 21, I visited the Palestinian refugee camps in Sabra and Shatila just as the Second Intifada was underway, and to see the depravity of humankind to each other really shattered me. When I was 22, I was the lead speaker at the anti-war protest held in front of the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York, which had 20,000 protesters and 5,000 police officers armed to the hilts. The World Economic Forum was held there that year instead of in Davos, Switzerland. In 2014, I marched with my 2 children at the climate rally in New York in what was the largest single event on climate and had been organized to date, one so large and diverse that it could not be ignored. And there was 400,000 people in the streets that day. And 1 year later, the Paris Climate Agreement was signed. In 2018, I rallied with my kids in Anaheim, California against the Muslim ban as the Supreme Court issued its decision. And later that year, I joined the Women's March bus in Orlando for early voting. We were told we were foreigners and people who should not be out voting. In 2020, I protested in front of Orlando City Hall with my 3 children against going to war with Iran. And not once or twice, but many times over the course of my life, I have seen people with limited means move against all odds to bring about change, because we cannot lose hope. If we lose hope and peace and hope for a better tomorrow, we lose everything. And now I am here before you to tell you to protest is the lifeblood of our country, is our lifeblood of this country in America, and our lifeblood of our country of India. And the defining moments of my life, and for you as well, are those where we have said no, where we have said no to racism, and we have said no to war.
Yeah, sorry for putting up with us on the technical difficulty, being that this is our first virtual convention and we're just getting used to all these Zoom buttons. And thank you for your patience. Thank you, Nadia Ahmed, for that very well-spoken 15 minutes. You did fantastic. I love your activism. Activism is what it is all about. And Muslims make natural activists, and you are proving that for social justice and fairness and justice. And right now we are at the forefront of that movement, whether it's in India or United States or anywhere in the world. And we are proud of all of you, those who take their time and do what they are supposed to be doing. Next up is Brother Sahab. And Dr. Sahab is an internal medicine graduate from Chicago. He's an hospitalist. He's an activist. Here I present to you Dr. Sahab. Before he starts to speak, I want to just say one quote, and that applies to him and to many of the people here. It says, "Don't ask the world what you need to do. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and go and do it." Here I present to you Dr. Sahab.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I would like to thank AFMI for having their 30th annual convention, Dr. Akbar Muhammad, Mr. Saeed Patel, and Ms. Rabia Khan for putting on this amazing convention in these trying times. Also, the rest of the panelists, I'm honored to be on this panel with you, Dr. Fatima, Mariam Ahmed, and Professor Nadia Ahmed. That was amazing. I'm really inspired by your work. I've been following that Engage conversation. Jazakallah for everything you're doing for our community. There's very few voices who have connected the dots, and so I'm very grateful for your work. So I wanted to start from kind of a different direction about talking about being an Indian Muslim living in America and youth leadership and empowerment. I think from the previous guests, I want to think, how do we create more Nadia Ahmeds and more Dr. Ahmeds, and everybody on this call has been a very big part of is what we would like to see, but I would say this is the minority, not the majority. So how do we create more people that are authentic and genuine and sincere and can approach the world with sincerity and ultimately become leaders? So I'm going to start with a story about my friend Samir. I've changed his name to protect his identity. But one day his mom had called me and said, "Hey Shahab, this is your childhood friend. Can you talk to him? He wants to marry somebody who's a different religion and different culture, and could you just figure out what kind of thought space he's in?" So I went to go talk to my friend Samir. I'm like, what's going on? I know your family, pretty traditional family with Islamic values. And he goes, "Brother, let me be honest with you. The only thing Indian about me is the food that I eat. Outside of that, I have no inclination towards desi things." And I started to rewind the tapes of his life, and he didn't know much about where he came from. So he was being honest. It was unreasonable for his parents to have those expectations of him. So I wanted to kind of I have 3 big points that I'd like to make. Number one is in my life, the most formative moment happened when I was 7 years old. I went to India, and we went all over India. We went to New Delhi, Bombay, Hyderabad, Aligarh, Assam. We went to different parts of India. And when I was in Hyderabad, when I was 7, I looked off the balcony and I saw this kid rummaging through the trash. I was just like, what is this guy doing? What is this kid doing who looks like me, is the same age as me? And so I went to interact with him. He was pulling stuff out of the trash. And this is me coming from the McDonald's world, where I finally confronted poverty and a different reality. And when I saw him looking through the trash, it really hurt me deeply, painfully. And this kid's name was Ghaus. And so I was like, "Ghaus, where do you live? What's your source of income? How do you have shelter?" He's like, "Nah, I just live over here." And, like, he couldn't give me proper answers. So I asked my family, "What is this kid doing here? Why is he by himself?" And he's like, "Nahi, mahle ke bache hai, aise hi rehte hain." I'm like, "So where does he go? What does he do?" That sparked something in me, coming from the McDonald's world of America. Like, it sparked something in me because it was so painful. That memory has stayed with me when I've gone to Syrian refugee camps, Burmese Rohingya refugee camps, Palestinian refugee camps, wherever I've gone and everything I've done. That moment can never get too far away from my life story. When I eat food, I don't want to waste food because I've seen situations where food's not available. When somebody wants to throw a water bottle away, I'll put it in the grass. And it's just because I've seen those places. So we have to connect ourselves with the soil of India and the subcontinent. We have an obligation to cultivate in our children, in our youth, a connection to that land where our forefathers are buried. When our parents, the first generation came here, when they left, did they think they were packing their heritage in a suitcase that they left there and they came here for more opportunities? No, I don't think we have to live that way. And by the other panelists on this call, you can see they've lived an enriched life with dual understandings of who they are. So the point I'm making in this is that if you don't know who you are, you can't do anything. And if you can't approach the world with knowing who you are, if you don't approach the world knowing who you are, you'll have a huge problem. Our contribution to the world is not just spelling bee champions. Sometimes it honestly makes me sad that memorizing dictionaries has become, it's actually become sad that memorizing dictionaries has become something Indians are known for. I'm not saying don't memorize books. I was actually in the spelling bee. Alhamdulillah, I feel like Desis have some sort of knack at memorizing spellings of words. I'm not going to lie. I didn't try as hard as most people. But that is not what we should be known for. We need creativity. We need ingenuity. We need thinkers, philosophers. Our contribution to the world is deep. We stand on the shoulders of giants. Islam did not exist in the subcontinent from lightweight scholars who were taken off the path by 1 or 2 new fascinations of sexuality and gender. These things have been talked about. They're in there in Urdu, which we'll talk about in another part of this talk. But we have huge contributions to society. Like Khawali, not. Like Abu Kalam Azad, Tipu Sultan, Iqbal, Darul Ulum, Deoband, Osmania, Taj Mahal, Fatehpur Sikri. It's mandatory. People need to go to where they came from. There's this concept in the West that a university-age student will, in college, go to Europe with a backpack. It's called backpacking through Europe. Go to his ancestral homeland and go backpacking through Europe to walk around, feel the vibes, and figure out where they're supposed to be going in life, right? Like, what am I supposed to be doing in life? Okay, let me go drop myself off in Paris. They go to Paris, they walk around, and they're supposed to find themselves. And I'll be honest with you, I went to Paris, I saw the Mona Lisa, I saw the Louvre, I saw people drinking wine, I saw the chocolates. It didn't get me. It didn't do it for me. But when I went to Fatehpur Sikri, when I was walking around Delhi, when I walked around Hyderabad, when I went to different places, I was like, okay, I see what I'm working with. I see what I'm about, what my people are about. And the reason I'm having this conversation is that people on this call, they know where they came from. That's why they're approaching the world with authenticity. Professor Nadia Ahmed, she's approaching the world with authenticity. But there's not that many people like that. Our goal is to create leaders. And to create leaders, you have to know where you came from. And that is one part of it. Number one is we must make it mandatory for people to go to India. I know, or in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, wherever you come from, just if it's possible, if you can go to Epcot Center, if you can go to Dubai, if you can go all these places, we cannot think, oh, there's a lot of pollution, there's dust, I can't go. You must, even if you stay at a Holiday Inn because your relatives don't live there, you need to see it, you need to check it out. It gives you a context of who you are. Otherwise, we're gonna live in a McDonald's fast food culture and there's no difference. Clearly the people who are making moves and fighting for the diaspora have this some sort of experience, and their parents have put incredible amount of time and effort making sure they know who they are. And as members of our community, it's not enough just to look after our kids. You need to spread this. You need to tell people, yo, that kid's kind of looking like Tommy or like Bill or like Lisa. You need to make that kid roll around in some dirt or something, or just needs to be more cultured, So that's number one. Number two, we need to train our hearts, not just our mind. Train our hearts, not just our mind. Our hearts need to be in tune with the struggle of humanity. Our hearts need to be in tune with the struggle of humanity, the struggle of the kids in Assam, the struggle of Black people in America. It helps us engage. We don't come from a foreign entity when it comes to pain. We have pain. We need to know that. We're so obsessed with developing our minds, memorizing words. I'm going to become a doctor, doctor this, doctor that, engineer this, lawyer that. What are we doing? Have we cultivated our hearts? Did we come to the United States for luxury? If we came here for luxury, we've gotten luxury. A lot of people are okay here. I went to a wedding once, and it really made me cringe. I was like, Ya Allah. This father of the groom said, he was talking about his son. He goes, he saw a person roll up to the masjid in a nice car, in a BMW or something like that. And his son asked him, what does that guy do? And he said, he's a doctor. And he said, okay, I want to be a doctor. Our goal was not to become doctors or professionals of any regard for luxury, okay? Purely for luxury. We need to use education for a purpose. Not moving to a posh neighborhood, not moving to Oak Brook, not moving to Naperville, not moving to Sugar Land, not moving to Fremont in the white picket fence dream and getting lost in the American dreams. Those things aren't bad, but when it's just about luxury, are we really the Ummah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? He could have lived like a king. People used to ask him why he slept on the ground. And Ali radiallahu anh saw him with the marks of the reed mat he slept on. He said, other people of your stature are living like kings. Why are you living this way? So if anybody knows the seerah of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this is not a foreign concept. So I'm going to repeat this again. Our goal is not just to upgrade our lifestyle, to get more luxury, to get a Tesla charger, and I have an electric car, I live in Oak Brook, blah, blah, blah. That's a problem. That's hollow. That's hollow. That will not stand the test of time. You do a little historical research. When we got wrapped up in luxury, the downfall began. So we cannot forget where we came from. the third thing that the words I want to, if you could remember me for two phrases, civilizational and cultural confidence gives you authenticity. Civilizational and cultural confidence gives you authenticity. When you are confident about your civilization, about your culture, about what you represent, you will not be swerving when you see different ideas of the West or the East or whatever that comes at you, new gender phenomena, whatever it might be. You will know this is who I am. This is where I come from. And so society will appreciate you because you're not mimicking the person who's standing next to you. Like, yeah, that's cool. No, you'll be like, no. That's not me. That's not who I am. That's not what I believe. So bringing this together, the civilization and cultural confidence makes us stand up to society. And living in a pluralistic, multicultural society, it's incumbent that we know who we are. The fourth thing that I think people need to get out of their mind is FOB, non-FOB, ABCD. These terms have become synonymous with having negative or positive connotation. FOB might say to an American-born confused, they say, you're confused. Who wants to be confused? We should not let our kids be confused. We should not be confused. So the FOBs are the Indian, and we were all FOBs at one point. We're all ABCs, whatever you want to call it. We cannot make one identity cooler than the other, whatever. Squash that. We're going to be like the people who don't, some of the racist people who are looking down on other immigrant people. We can't use this mentality. And the fifth thing, those of vision need to lead those who are blind. If you see something, if you see a problem coming, you have to be the one who pulls the fire alarm. You have to be the one to say, look, man, let's educate our people about our history. Let's talk about Tipu Sultan. Let's talk about Naat. Let's talk about Urdu. Let's talk about the freedom movement in 1947, whatever it is. Because of the people on this call, they have a certain inclination. Bring this message to other people. This is AFMI's 30th annual convention. I want there to be a 50th, a 70th, a 90th, and a 130th, whatever it is. I want this to continue. 100 years ago, none of us were here. 100 years from now, none of us will be here. So when we make our sajda before we go to sleep, whatever that is, are we making strides to ensure that the next generation of people are going to carry the banner of the disenfranchised from our subcontinent and in the world, and Muslims at large? Jazakallah for your time. If you have any questions, I'm here. Once again, I'm honored for this, and I hope AFMI continues and excels in these opportunities to provide education and a voice to the voiceless. What we're doing as a diaspora here in America, especially through AFMI, we're making the most of this opportunity. We're making the most of this opportunity. From those pictures that Dr. Mariam and Dr. Fatima showed, they're making the most of their opportunity. We're 0.5% of America. Alhamdulillah, a lot of us are doing good, are comfortable, so to speak. We have to make the most of this opportunity. And whether that's to donate to AFMI, or people you know, or families and people affected in New Delhi, let's make the most of this opportunity and not get too lavish, too luxurious. Keep our eye on the prize. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother. That was very inspiring, spoken from the heart. It reminds me of my friend, Dr. Qutbuddin from Chicago. Oh, wait, I think you are his son. Congratulations, brother Sahab. Brilliantly spoken. Civilization and cultural confidence gives authenticity. What a sentence. I will definitely remember you for this sentence. So moving on, I think we have a nice message from the first Muslim Congresswoman of the United States, who is inspiring millions in the United States and throughout the world. She's none other than Congresswoman Mrs. Rashida Tlaib. So let's hear her message for AFMI.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. I want to thank all of you so much for wanting to be engaged in this way. I know that we're trying to empower each other, and we talk about it in that way, but it's really about showing up for each other. And when we do that, it is empowering, it is inspiring. And I know, as one of the first Muslim women ever elected to the United States Congress, we have been missing at various tables in conversations around social justice issues. And it could be around healthcare, immigration, around just poverty issues, and all the different things that I think are wrong right now in our society. And so we are, in many ways, when we empower each other to speak up, when we empower each other to show up, that we are changing the world for the better. And so I want to encourage you all to keep doing that. And I have this saying, when we show up for each other, we save lives. And I truly mean that, because we're engaging people in such a beautiful, authentic way. And so thank you all so much. Jazakallah khairan, and assalamu alaikum to all of you. Ma salama.
What a beautiful, inspiring words. Now, next up is my own daughter, 21-year-old Seba Saeed. She's one of the most brilliant person I know. And just as a testimony that she's getting 4.0 out of 4.0 GPA in cumulative GPA in undergrad, along with journalism courses, which is her main. She also took enough courses to apply for medical school. So maybe you're looking at a future Dr. Sanjay Gupta. You might see Dr. Seba Saeed on CNN or somewhere. So here to present to you my own daughter, Seba Saeed.
Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. My name is Seba. So firstly, I just wanted to briefly thank all of the preceding speakers before me, especially Brother Shahab, who spoke right before me. All of you provided so much wisdom, and I think we can all apply your words of advice to our own lives. So thank you so much for sharing your wonderful thoughts. So now I hope I can shed some of my own wisdom that might help you all think a little bit differently. So I just wanted to start by telling you all a little bit more about myself and my personal perspective on the empowerment of women, especially as a member of the younger generation, since I'm only 21. So firstly, I think it's really important to mention, as my father mentioned just a few moments ago, that I am a college student right about to graduate. So that means I'm in my final year. And though I definitely do sometimes take it for granted, the fact that I can even say that I attend college, much less be ready to graduate and have an official degree, is a major blessing. It's really easy to forget that not everyone gets the same opportunity when you're so stuck in a whirlwind of your heavy workload of assignments and exams. And if you add extracurriculars on top of that, it can get really disorienting and overwhelming. But it's really important to take a step back and realize that it's not as easy to access education for everyone, especially women. It's important because we need to help those who don't have that opportunity. It's really valuable to educate the younger generation, especially because we are the future of the world. And if you have an educated youth, you're setting the world up for success. And women have to be included. We're 50% of the population, and without us, the world would just not run. So there's this common stereotype that Muslim women are oppressed. And that is not only grossly exaggerated, it's completely fictionalized. Yes, I will admit that there are certain Muslim communities where women are abused and given very limited rights, and it's extremely unfortunate and tragic to see. But it's very important to realize that these communities do not value the true essence of Islam. Their actions are dictated by cultural connotations, not religion. If you go out and explore what the Quran says about women, you will find that there is a whole chapter dedicated to us called An-Nisa, which means word for word translation, the women. And it talks about valuable rights that we're entitled to, like monetary assets, and it gives specific ratios and specific definitions of what we're assigned. So many people, especially in the West, feel that Muslim women are considered lower than dirt. This is completely inaccurate. The Prophet's 4 remaining children were all female in a time when females were frowned upon, and in some places we unfortunately still are. His wives were also known as the mothers of the believers in the Quran, so we can see that both his wives and his daughters embody the value of women even in Islam. So speaking of women, especially in the context of youth, I think Aisha radiallahu anhu, the Prophet's youngest wife, was a perfect example of what a woman should be. Her youthful energy brought a new perspective to the spread of Islam, and her razor-sharp intellect and memory allowed the Prophet's words and actions to survive thousands of years, even after he left the earth. After his death, many people were left disoriented and confused. They didn't know who to turn to, they didn't know where to go for information, and there was no way to access what thoughts he originally had. So they quickly began to forget his character. But Aisha's firm memory allowed everyone to remember. We can thank Aisha for so many sections of the Hadith that we still cling on to today. It's been thousands of years, but we still use it for our daily lives. It's the Hadith that teaches us how to pray, how to eat, how to speak, how to spend our time. And it's Aisha who continues to breathe life into us, who continues to teach and educate the masses, even when her physical body is no longer with us here on earth. It's her energy and her spirit, and it's her dedication to contribute something worthwhile to the people around her. We cannot forget the vital role that Aisha radiallahu anhu played in the lasting power of Islam. And it wasn't just in the classroom that she left such a mark. Aisha also participated in the Battle of Badr, a significant early battle between Meccans and outnumbered Muslims 3-1 as a nurse. This was just one example of her amazingly well-rounded personality. She was lively and energetic, always bringing light to the darkest of situations. But it wasn't necessarily her level of skill or her level of talent that made her so remarkable. It was her willingness to be a part of something bigger and better. It was her intentions and her commitment. And it was her drive to be more than just the Prophet's wife. She wanted to make a name for herself independent of that label, but it contributes to her merit as a powerful and inspirational figure nonetheless. I think that these qualities are exactly what women should be. We aren't just defined by a position in the house, but if that's what we choose for ourselves, there is nothing wrong with it. The point is that it's just that, what we choose. It is a decision we make for ourselves. And I think that is exactly what woman empowerment is. The decision to choose what we become, what degree we want, what path we want to seek, and what brings us joy. Our life path is not and should not be dictated by the opinions of anyone other than our own. We are more than just one title or one label. We hold different roles and responsibilities because we are capable of much more than just one activity or position. We are women, and we are winning. Thank you.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I couldn't have said any better, Sebo. I know you're a good writer, but today I see you are a good speaker as well. And you're absolutely right that women can do whatever they want. And it is seen in India in anti-CAA protests, which is led by Muslim women of India, which is a very proud thing for all Muslims all over the world, but particularly Indian Muslims. They are literally saving the democracy of India. So I'm obviously very proud of yourself. I'm proud of all the speakers, all these Indian origin people who grew up in the United States, but still carry with them the cultural confidence from India and Indian Muslims, which is what AFMI basically is all about, to not lose the identity and contribute towards the less underprivileged people and help them out. So thank you again. Shahabuddin spoke very well as well. So I'm glad things are going very well. And I want to present to you next person. Actually, he's my partner in crime. He's been added last minute. His name is Babu Khalfan. He's 70-plus-year-old, but he is as young as probably somebody who's 25. When it comes to the energy that he brings to anything he does in business, in social work. He has started a project which I like very much to inspire the youth. It's called Be Books. And we just rolled out the pilot project in India. He's been working on it for almost 5 years, but this is the first time we rolled out Be Books project. What it means is the title of those books are called Be Something in Life. That's the title. We call it Be Books. So the first 3 books are like Aman becomes Dr. Aman, and Asha becomes Teacher Asha, and Rani becomes Inspector Rani. So basically, I would like him to talk a few things. He runs a very successful business in New York City called Sign and Decal, and he's in that business for 50 years. Very, very successful. So here it is, presenting to you Babu Khalfan.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Everybody can see me?
Yes, walaikum assalam, Brother Babu.
Okay. My idea, I go back about 20 years when I was with Dr. Shakir Mukhi in AFMI conference, and we were going and visiting several poor schools and several poor places. And I was always wondering that, is there anybody else? Is there
Brother Babu, we can't hear you. Sorry for technical difficulty. Maybe he hit some button he shouldn't have. That happens sometimes. I feel bad because yeah, Babu, you are connecting now. Thank you for being patient, audience. Please don't go away because Babu has something important to share. Yeah, Babu, unmute yourself. Unmute. Unmute. Unmute.
Okay.
Yes.
Can
Go
you hear
ahead.
me now?
Sorry.
Okay. So these are the books that Mr. Saeed was talking about. If anybody wants the copy of this book, either
Can you hold them to the screen? Yeah.
All right. This is one book. This is a book.
Something. Aman becomes Dr. Aman. Can you just flip through some pages, Babu? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. These are the pages inside. It's made in such a way that if you don't even read English, or anybody who is a small poor boy who doesn't have any ideas of education at all, he can relate the message. Basically what it says is that from a poor little boy, he goes to school and he becomes a doctor. And there's a whole very easy lifestyle shown that he becomes a doctor, he gets married, he has a house, and all of that kind of successful story, just like a movie would show. So we have done that kind of things. That is one book. This is another book, which is Arch becomes a teacher. There is another book for police, that she becomes a policewoman. Then I have created an American version of that same thing, which I'm trying to work with the school system here. Again, the same version, but an American version for children of United States. Becomes Dr. Jordan, becomes Dr. Jordan, and things like that. The idea here is that we have distributed these, about 3,000 of them in Gujarat, and they have proved very successful. People are really liking it. We're going to print another 10,000 of them. It is basically, if you see the front page, the first page, you would see the series of books, and these are about 10, 20 series of books that we are going to do. And
yeah,
more.
hold it, Babu, hold it. I want to read some of these titles. Sana becomes Nurse Sana. Babu becomes Minister Babu. Ruby becomes Beautician Ruby. Arun becomes Builder Arun. Anjali becomes Actress Anjali. So these are like some of the 20 titles we came up with, but obviously it can be added as we go along. And this is universal, not just for Muslim kids, but any kids anywhere. And what Babu has done is, right now he's funding the whole project. It cost him a lot of money to come this far. However, these are going to be distributed free of charge to anybody, anywhere. So basically any goodwill person can also sponsor. In the last page, Babu, can you show the last page where you have the sponsorship?
Yeah,
so,
the last page is here.
For example, this can be said by donated by AFMI for certain school in India or in the United States on certain things. So that gives some sort of impetus to even AFMI, that the people start talking about AFMI, it's marketing for AFMI, as well as a real good work. So basically it just wants to spark the imagination of any kid between, I guess, 7 to 15 years who can relate to this kind of books. And so far, it has been a phenomenally successful launch of the pilot project. So anybody on this webinar listening, anybody panelists, anybody has any further interest in this project, please contact us, Babu or myself. And we'll be happy. The books are in Gujarat. We got them printed, like Babu said, 3,000. And we plan to do even 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, doesn't matter. Sky is the limit, but the whole game is to inspire the youth. So I guess, anything else, Babu, you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention one thing, that normally, even here in the United States, I mean, a lot of my son's friends comes here, and I ask them sometimes on the dining table if they want what they have decided to become. And they have no idea. They have no guidance even from anybody, because their parents probably are not business people or whatever may be the case. They don't have a proper guidance. So this book gives a guidance to a young fellow. And the whole idea is to click his mind. If there are 10 boys or girls, and I made these books in such a way that 50% are girls and 50% are boys. And the idea is that if 10 boys or girls gets these books, and they exchange, oh, I got a policewoman, I got a doctor, I got a pilot, I got a lawyer, I got this. By just talking that subject themselves, they have created something clicking in their mind that they want to become something in life. And that remains for a long time, because a kid of 7 years will remember this for the rest of their life. And that is the whole idea behind it. If any of you guys want to help us in this project, you have some ideas, you want to add some lines to the book, if you need the books, contact me or contact Dr. Said. All right, thank you very much, and salam alaikum.
Yeah, thank you, Babu. And many times when people ask what AFMI is all about, then this is what AFMI is all about, bringing people like Babu on this platform, who are passionate about helping the humanity. So there are many such examples of AFMI contributing and inspiring in a positive way. So if anybody wants to donate, please feel free. AFMI.org, www.afmi.org. And any questions, anything, and we hope to just bring out such projects to just have positive impact for all of us. So thank you. And now let me just open up the floor for all the panelists and for the audience for question and answers or some sort of interaction. Because we have all the panelists waiting, and we can just have a general discussion with the audience. So please, audience, go ahead and just put your comments or questions. I would appreciate even questions, because comments are just so many and very, very, very encouraging. One comment is it was worth attending sessions. Selections of speakers are excellent. So applause for all the speakers who spoke brilliantly. Would love to extend my wholehearted support to AFMI. And then there is, he's all the way from India, by the way. To strengthen AFMI organization. There are many, many comments, and thank you, Dr. Sabuddin. You have very well defined the concept of Khudi by poet Allama Iqbal. Excellent presentation by Dr. Mariam Fatima Ahmed. Sahab sir has delivered very emotional and inspirational speech. To strengthen AFMI-like organization, charity funds is the only solution. I accept that everyone has to look to their relative and friends, but system must be made that anybody need help, he must approach the organization and seeks solution for his. That's the comment from Yusuf Patel. Excellent speech, inspiring a youth here by excellent speech by Professor Nadia Ahmed, and many such comments. So please go ahead, and there is a question, I think, here. Can we have literature prepared by Mr. Babu for distribution? Yes, the answer is yes. And one, Akbar Mohammed Saab asked, are we recording everything and planning to relay on YouTube? So I guess we'll decide on that later on. Anybody, any panelists wants to add or say something? Please, this is our time right now. Go ahead and just raise your hand, or however you want to start speaking. And Dr. Mariam Ahmed, I think you have to unmute. Can all the panelists unmute that mic so we can all hear? Ayub Khan Saab is also joining us. So Ayub Khan Saab, Salaam Alaikum from Toronto. Please say something. What do you think of the program so far? Everyone, please unmute. And Sister Dr. Mariam Ahmed, you wanted to say something?
Sure, I would like to say something, and I also would like my sister to answer because she has the same experience.
Your voice is a little bit low. Can you come close and please?
Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay. I was saying that I would love to answer the question. Also, I would like my sister to answer because she has her own experience with traveling to India, and she can tell you about how she experienced being a gold medal recipient. But as far as our experience being involved with the AFMI events, we, being born and brought up in America, you hear stories about India, but from your parents, but nothing feels real until you see it. And it's one thing to visit India and visit your family and go shopping and come back, but it's another thing to visit the places where AFMI is helping. and to actually see the impoverished people and to see what they're going through. And it's almost a shock to your system that, you know, things like this actually exist, you know, in the homeland where you came from. And like Dr. Shahabuddin was saying, once you see that, it stays with you forever. And it sort of ties you into your homeland in a way that you don't forget, you know. So then his point that he was making, that education, you know, the end goal is not financial happiness, you know. You have to give something back. When you experience something like that, you don't forget it. And so you're always motivated to give back. When we saw the impoverishment, when we saw the children that were so young, you know, but they were so inspired by us, by our presence, and they were so motivated to do well in life and do better in life. And, you know, it changes you. Once you see that, you don't unsee that. And so visiting these places did a lot more for our experience versus the regular trips to India where you visit your family and, you know, eat food and come back, which is also fun. But these life-changing experiences, you know, stay with you as an adult. And my sister Fatima also was honored with the gold medal, so she was able to actually receive and be part of the, you know, inspiration of AFMI, and she can talk to you more about that.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Go ahead, Dr. Fatima.
Yeah, to build and extend on what Mariam was saying, specifically going on these trips, I think we read a lot about, you know, this organization is a grassroots program, this organization is a policy-making program, and they do different things on different levels. One of the beauties of AFMI is that they've been doing it at all of these levels, and all of these levels matter, and you don't truly understand it until you see it all come together. You know, when I was on the trip one morning, we're visiting, you know, a school that has just received computers and is getting their technical stuff put together, and they're celebrating that. And then in the afternoon, we're meeting with a minister or a policymaker and kind of stating our case and lobbying them. And then the next day, we're having tea with the president and continuing our message. And so to be able to experience the grassroots program all the way up to a policy making and legislative level, you really don't truly understand it until you've experienced all of that, and to see how all of those things work together to meet that end goal. So that was really valuable on the trip that I went. You kind of get a better understanding of, you know, we go to these medal presentations, and you don't realize the value that that has to the children that are there, for them to receive a medal that is recognizing their excellence in academics, and something that they can have on their resume that this American organization has recognized and values what they're doing. It's a huge motivating factor, not just for that child to continue to succeed, but for all the other kids that are attending and seeing that. They're not receiving recognition anywhere else. And that really is a huge motivating factor. So I appreciated that and understood it a lot more once I had participated on the trip. And then going back to what Dr. Shahabuddin said is once you go on these trips, it's one thing to hear, you know, this is happening in the world and you should help it, and sure, I guess that's happening somewhere. But once you go and you actually experience this happening, and you see the real measurable difference that AFMI is making, you feel connected with what you're doing and what they're asking for. And so all the words that we're speaking today come into live action on these trips. And so that's why I would encourage anybody interested to get in touch and try to participate in these trips.
Yes, so that's perfect. Yeah, very well said, Dr. Fatima. So, yeah, I have some questions regarding the books that Babu talked about. Where can we obtain books? Amazon, question mark. Right now, they are not on Amazon. Right now, we have 3,000 printed in Gujarat, in Bharuch, actually. They're sitting there. So somebody from Bharuch asked, where can he get it? He can get right there. We can put him in touch with the person. So I'm glad there is a lot of interest in the books. And I would like to know from the panelists, what do they think about the books that Babu presented? Sahab, Bhai, Dr. You have anything? Dr. Nadia?
So I think I really like the book idea. I think it's really important that we be able to have our own authentic voices within this conversation. And I actually want to know like if it's available on Amazon so other people can also purchase it, because I think having like easy access to it is really important. I think that if you work with the right distribution channels with Amazon, you should be able to have it sold on Amazon as well. So I think it's not only important to have it available in India, but also here in the US. I think my kids would definitely benefit from reading that.
Yeah, so as Babu was saying, and I agree with him completely, I mean, we had India in mind, but this could be anywhere, including United States. It could be Africa, it could be in Europe. You just have to probably change a little bit of how it's illustrated and how it's the words are put in, you know, maybe even different languages, right, Babu? That's the vision, right?
No. Can I say something?
Yeah.
Okay. The books, I'm trying to create about 10 different countries. And the next one I'm doing is, first of all, is United States. And the other one is Africa. So I'm having an Africa illustrator or cartoonist create the African background, because you can't have an Indian background and an African story. You understand? So the whole background and everything has to be within that same country. Or for instance, in China, for instance, it will be a Chinese background. Or in Afghanistan, it will be an Afghanistan background. Or anywhere, Korea, where you would take South America, for instance, Brazil, you will have a Brazilian background. So it relates to that particular country, and the children relates to that community, basically. And that's the whole idea.
So Professor
The
Nadia,
India project is just a trial. We just want to experiment it. But I want to bring this throughout the world.
The pilot project we did, there are some unintended things we got which were kind of positive. Like it was very well received by the students. It was done in a school that we run in our village, our ancestral village in Gujarat. There are 400 students, and the teachers loved it so much. So what they would do, we had a small questionnaire, 10 question. What do you like about the story? What do you want it added? Do you want a better life? Some simple answer. And the teacher would ask the student, and the students are participating very enthusiastically. In fact, those students who were not interviewed, they said, no, we also want to be interviewed. So what I was telling Babu is, because of the proliferation of this smartphone, the teacher can take that 2-minute video, 1-minute video, asking those questions and recording it. Like somebody wants to be an actor, somebody wants to be a police person, somebody. So that sort of tells the teacher for future that, okay, this kid aspiration is this. So there will be a nice sort of a recording which will be there for posterity, that they can refer back and forth between student and teacher and parents. And that's something we didn't expect, but that has come out very nicely. They'll just record the feedback, you know?
One thing, Said. I wanted to mention that these books are 5 or 10 cents each. They are not going to be making any profit. There's not money making a project at all. It is strictly to give to the kids, to click their minds to do something in life. Basically, that's what it is. I've been working with the older people, and I tell you, it's very tiring to turn their minds to different. As soon as you are 25, 27 years old, it's very, very difficult to change the mind. So the young fellows are the best person, under 10, 12, 15, are the best person to educate them and create something for them so they can do something in their life.
So they are
And I
called
wanted to add one more thing, sorry.
Go
I was
ahead.
thinking that it should also, for the books, you should make them ebooks as well. So that would be easier to distribute via Amazon, especially with everything now, like this whole homeschool environment. It's also easier for parents to access them for their children and teachers to access them for their kids that way. So even though you have the physical copy of it, you can easily convert it into an ebook on Amazon.
Okay.
That's an
Very good
excellent feedback. Very, very, very good feedback.
And
I completely agree.
Sorry, just one thing I wanted to mention in the talk, but I forgot. And it kind of piggybacks on this conversation is for the youth, especially in terms of their engagement with social media. You know, the great people in history like Napoleon, Tipu Sultan, Khutbuddin Aibak, anybody you can think of, would they have been those great people if they had social media and WhatsApp? Maybe not, because it's such a distracting force. A lot of people are looking at these studies about how it mutates the mind and the way we think, and it's very addicting. So that was this one side comment I wanted to keep for the youth. We have to be aware of their electronic usage and paper books and reading books. Just reading books is so much more beneficial than perusing the internet endlessly with news and other things. So Jazakallah, Mr. Babu, for taking on this initiative. It's very, very relevant, and we have to support these types of initiatives. Jazakallah.
Yeah, I have one question, Brother Sahab, from somebody who says, what would you give advice, maybe in a succinct manner, about the COVID? Because you have been dealing with that as a doctor. So for an Indian audience and for audience here, in terms of this ongoing pandemic, any words of wisdom on?
It really varies geographically where you're located. Like where I'm at in Chicago, the numbers are going up. They've canceled a few bigger events. If you're in India, I think definitely from what I'm reading there, the numbers and incidents are going up. There is great treatment for it now. If you got COVID 6 months ago versus now, you have a much better survivability. Still maintain precautions, social distancing, hand hygiene, the things we've all heard of. If the prevalence goes up in your area, I would homeschool, e-learn, all of that. But it really depends, place specific. But I can get into more details if they want to message me about treatment options. But right now, I think definitely in India, avoid large gatherings, continue to social distance. This is not over. The seasonal variations coming in with the flu season right now in the United States. So numbers are on the rise here. So we might actually have to go take a step back and do the things we were doing 3 or 4 months ago. If the numbers trend in this direction, like in the states of Indiana and Michigan.
Oh, perfect. I don't know if Aisha is on the line from India. Are you, Aisha? Maybe she's not. So I guess we'll have to skip that question because somebody wanted to know from her about education in India. Anyway, so one of the things that comes to my mind, and I just want to, it is probably relevant here because of what's going on in India in terms of discrimination and violence against the Muslims. And there is a whole 200 million of us, and still a lot of this persecution and repression. Now, one of the things I noticed, and since there are medical doctors on this panel, is that there is this fear of RSS, fear of BJP. Is there some kind of a maybe medical intervention or psychological intervention that we can provide? So there is this phobia that disappears or at least it gets reduced, because that fear sometimes makes them motionless, you know. I mean, I'm not talking about all, but there's a large section of people who are taking a lot of abuse because of this. I would call it unnecessary fear. So any thoughts from anybody on this? Brother Sahab, Brother Dr. Fatima.
Yeah, I mean, I could speak just from my own experience about these types of things. And mental health is, I think, the category that this falls into. We have to be very cautious of how much news we're intaking. If you get all the graphic details about some of these events, you have to take inventory of how you're feeling. The ayah light in the Quran, Nurun Allah, Nur, God is light. Despite all circumstances that Muslims will go through, we will persevere. And we are not a dark tradition. We're very optimistic. And we have to remember that. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam faced remarkable challenges, but he persevered. And alhamdulillah, he overcame them. But from a mental health perspective, we need to be careful how many vivid details we're watching. Like me personally, I don't watch the police brutality videos like George Floyd, and sometimes the minor details of what happened to the Kashmiri girl in India, it really messes with my mind. So know enough where you're in tune, but not to the point where you're creating a phobia. And that's where the line has to be drawn about how do we preserve our sanity but still be informed. But I think if it's getting to the point where you're seeing enemies all around you and it's not there, then I think you need to take a break. You need to take a break outside of things that personally affect you in your day-to-day. You need to take a break and reevaluate how you're taking this information in.
Perfect. I have a last question, and then we'll conclude for Dr. Nadia, or Sister Nadia. There's a question here. It says, please give us some more information on Muslim voter rights organization that you are involved in. How can
Sure.
young people get involved?
So I can send you the link, drop it in the chat for two organizations. One is the Muslim Delegates and Allies Coalition. And what that group is doing is to get Muslims more involved in the political process. And so that's like part of a longer term vision for how, to improve Muslim policy. And that's a 501c4 organization. And the other group that I'm a part of is the Muslims for Biden group. And so this group is like part of a 50-state mobilization effort for Muslims. And we actually decided we're going to target Florida. We're going to deliver Florida for the Biden campaign because there's a lot of states, I think, that are there. And so we really want to make sure that we can have that. So I'll drop that in the chat.
Well, thank you very much. We are almost concluding now. So as we conclude, I want to just applaud and thank technical coordinator Rabia Khan, actually without whom none of us would be here, none of us would be talking. This virtual convention won't even happen. So please applause for Dr. Rabia Khan, Sister Rabia Khan from Indiana, who did a brilliant, amazing job for the last 2 days and even prior preparing for this. Thank you very much, Sister Rabia, and may Allah bless yourself, your family, and keep you happy, healthy, smiling always, as you have been. And we can't thank you enough. So someone else, there are a few thank yous. Obviously, our visionary and founder, who have been at it for last 30 years. He founded it, he sustained it, he motivated all of us. Dr. Abdul Rahman Nakadar Saab, whom I know since 1991. So thank you, Dr. Saab, for helping all of us. And then, of course, and the team, the dream team from Ohio, Dr. Akbar, Dr. Farida, Dr. Sanaullah Khan, for planning and executing this wonderful 30th virtual, first of its kind. It was 30th, but it became virtual. It has its own advantages and disadvantages. Excuse some glitches, but inshallah, in the next virtual convention, you probably won't suffer as much. And of course, one of the behind the scenes guy who worked tirelessly is my friend Ayub Khan from Toronto, for keeping it all together, keeping everybody in touch with each other, making sure things are running smooth, talking to Rabia Khan and many of us. And of course, past President Siraj Bhai, who has been mentoring all of us. He was immediate past president for his wisdom and insight. And last but not least, all the participants who joined us from all over the world. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for the enthusiasm. Thank you for your questions. You did awesome, and you inspired us all. And we hope to continue to carry on this message and make it even more bigger and better. So thank you once again. Jazakallah khair. As I would like to conclude by saying a little dua. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. We shouldn't be worried about anything else, as Sahab said. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you.